Several years ago, when the fate of some of the buildings on the Fort Hays campus was uncertain, Fort Hays students decided to take matters into their own hands. They wrote New Year's greetings on postcards to people who they felt had an ability to do something about the future of the fort. One side was a historic photo of Fort Hays, and the other was a student's message. A freshman wrote to the Columbus City Schools Director of Facilities, quote, "I think tearing down the old buildings would make campus a less interesting place. Right now, the buildings provide a drive for some students, and a campus with the old buildings renovated would inspire kids to do their best and to learn to compromise rather than to start all over. The buildings could be inspiring to young artists. The buildings also would create focal points for off-campus visitors." End quote. Buildings as conflict resolution? An interesting thought. Another freshman got right to the point in a letter to school board member Loretta Hurd. Quote, "I love the old buildings. I think it would be nice to put in a breakfast place. A lot of people miss breakfast, and I think it would be very beneficial to the students and teachers." End quote. Tactfully, Loretta did not write back that there already was a breakfast place, the cafeteria. Perhaps the students just didn't arrive in time to find it. A junior wrote to school board members Andy Ginther and Jeff Cabot, quote, "Fort Hays as a complete setting carries with it perhaps one of the strongest historical identities in Columbus. Any one of the buildings, in use or abandoned, has a fascinating story to tell, and if renovated, would be versatile in potential uses for the massive interior spaces. It would not only be an act of great esteem for the city and the school system to preserve the buildings by putting them to use and adding to their story, but it would most likely be more economical than demolishing them, only to erect new facilities in their place, which may overpower the sense of history every person who has been through here feels. The preservation of history is the love of knowledge and wisdom." End quote. Young Isaac was on a roll when he wrote that. And not to be deterred or even detoured by a run-on sentence, but he made wonderful observations. And still, another student wrote to board member Stephanie Hightower, quote, "As a senior at Fort Hays, I feel I have an obligation to help preserve the history of our school and our campus. These unique buildings are used in history lessons daily. These buildings are part of us, but unfortunately, they are being overlooked. Please let our past become our future." End quote. Let our past become our future. Prophetic words. Many of the students who wrote these observations in 2002 could not even grasp just how much the past had been lost before the 1970s, when the shot tower had been obtained by the Columbus City Schools, secured, and placed under the leadership of the school's first director, Jack Gibbs. The hospital, the paratroopers' jump site, barracks, communication buildings, more than 24 Victorian-style officers' homes, tennis courts, and swimming pools were gone. The small lake at the corner of Cleveland Avenue and Buckingham, now Jack Gibbs Boulevard, which had been popular in the winter with citizens of Columbus who liked to skate, was now gone. The famous gazebo band shell, the site of Sunday entertainment for generations of Columbusites, and stage for the 26-piece barracks band, and later for the even larger post band, would be moved to the Park of Roses to make way for the WCBE radio station and performing arts building, and other new buildings began to fill the campus. But what the students did see was that the remaining old buildings could be the beginning of a new vision, a campus of new and renovated buildings which could meet the needs of a 21st century school district. Everyone's favorite building, the Civil War era shot tower, housed offices, up-to-date technology, art spaces, a 5th grade arts program, and an art gallery with so much presence that a Fort Hays teacher chose it for her wedding. In 1994, Building 110 had been reborn in the 20th century under the leadership of Jerry McAfee, with new science labs and rooms equipped with long-distance education capabilities. And in a twist of fate, where officers once were served elegant Christmas Eve dinners on white tablecloths, students now ate burritos and French fries in the first real cafeteria on campus. The students saw the potential of the buildings. Old spaces could have new faces. They knew old spaces had stories, real and or imagined, and that made the buildings important. Was there really a building which was a combination band practice room and jail? Were the keys, cells, desks, and even papers still there? What was the really big brick structure? The one with the odd rounded doorway. Was it true it had been used for horse drills during World War I? Did it really have balconies for visitors which ran the length of the building? Were the stables still there? Could it be a gym someday? Was Building 63 really the site of the first OSU basketball game? Did the college play the Army there in the 1880s? Was there still a softball field behind the shot tower? A swimming pool under the business building? Did one building have a courtroom for soldiers who might be facing court-martialing, ironically located conveniently near the peak room for those waiting for in-school suspension? Was that tiny brick building in the teacher's parking lot, the one with the 3-foot thick brick walls and many chimneys, really old, like Civil War old? Would ammunition have been stored there? Did a general ever live in the general's house? And more importantly, was it true that the doors in the house closed by themselves? Watches and clocks stopped? And that painters once fled the place because it gave them the creeps? Did that really have something to do with the story of Lincoln's funeral and a private who loved a general's daughter? Did conductors and fugitives on the Underground Railroad really pass behind buildings 110, 63, and 64 on their way to safe houses in Westerville and Clinton Township? Is that why Cleveland Avenue was known as Harbor Road? Did soldiers ever live in the shot tower? Was it true someone once visited campus and said that he had been confronted by a ghostly figure when he was on guard duty there in World War II? Did President Franklin Roosevelt really visit the center building? Is it true that my grandfather, my friend's great-grandfather, your uncle, my mother's cousin, and the neighbor down the street all once had been at Fort Hays? Is it really possible that all those men leaving to fight the Confederacy, going on trains to the wars in the Indian territories, disembarking for Cuba during the Spanish-American War, serving duty in the Panama Canal, seeing action in the war in France and Belgium, in the war to end all wars, leaving to fight in Germany, Japan, and Italy, facing service in Korea, and on duty along the Iron Curtain, going through the induction for Vietnam, or even boarding buses to go to Desert Storm and the war in Iraq, all passed through this space. The answers are all yes, 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 of course, yes. Maybe, but no one has decided on the gem. Yes, yes, maybe on the ghost stories. The one behind Building 110 has not been seen in a number of years. Yes, yes, an Underground Railroad route past an army barrack was safe, but the name Harbor Road referred to the city of Cleveland's harbor. Yes, yes, and yes. All the people associated with all those events did pass through Fort Hays. Students held out faith for the future of a school, even if they would not be there to see it, even if they would graduate before the changes could be made, and their dreams became so much more than they could have imagined. Classrooms with absolutely up-to-date technology, where once there were barracks, a real library with a computer center, online referencing, and distance education capabilities, which still had a balcony to sing from. It is possible for our past to become our future. It is happening here.